Welcome back, Reptile fam, and thank you for joining me for another Xenorc Reptile Talks. How's everybody going? Hope you guys are having a great week. Hope you guys are staying out of the heat. I'm not sure how hot it is where you guys live, but we've had an extreme heat warning, and I live in Washington, and we do live in the desert, so we're used to 100-degree weather, but it's been way excessively above 100 degrees, and our house is not set up to handle this heat, so I have ACs going everywhere. That's why I'm shooting in my living room. It's about the quietest room in the house. I even have to have ACs on my reptiles. Might sound weird to some of you guys that I have to have an AC in my room, but I have to keep it at a certain temperature to keep the racks working properly. And I also keep my African soft furs in there, so I definitely gotta keep them cool enough so they don't die. Anyways guys, so I'm gonna do a video today about African soft furs. I know that I'm a reptile channel, but I do have a lot of people that love rats and like talking about them, and I can't neglect those guys. So I'm gonna talk about African soft furs worth the hype. The ball python community and a lot of the snake community talk about them all the time, how amazing they are. Do they actually live up to the hype? And you know what? I've had them for about a year now. I think September, next month, I'll have them for a year. And I'm gonna talk about my experiences and do I think they're worth the hype? And should you get them or not? Right after this. Welcome back, everyone. So I'm going to tell you all my ups and downs with African soft furs. So let's start out with me trying to get them. They're really hard to get. I found out that you can't ship them, so you can't actually ship them over states. Now I can like drive to Oregon and like maybe at a reptile show and pick them up there, but you're not supposed to ship them like by animal freight. Like through a plane or nothing like that, so they can't be shipped that way. And so they were hard to get a hold of when I first started getting into them. I persevered, and then I found about 4 people here in Washington that keeps them. I searched and searched. What I did personally is I joined a Facebook community that was about African soft furs. And I was constantly, about once a week, asking people if anybody in Washington or close by that I can drive and pick them up had them. About a year later, someone texted me and said they had some and they would sell me some. So this is my first experience with African soft furs. I drove across Washington State to get them. The person that I bought them from sent their brother. The brother had no clue. He mixed them all together, and when I came back, a lot of them were chewed up, or some of them died, because African soft furs, you learn right away, they cannot be mixed. Once they make a colony, they can't be mixed. So those were actually my first African soft furs I got. And I'll be honest, I still have a couple of those left in my colonies, but those ones were not the best African soft furs that I found. They were mean. We have one called Satan, and if you put your finger in there, he'd run up and try to bite you. That's hence Satan. I'll be honest with you right now, not all African soft furs are the same. Some are nicer than others. Some people actually bred them down to be nicer. Honestly, the colors that I always see that are nicer are the white and brown ones. The ones that are solid colors, to me, always seem to be a little more mean. I don't know why. There's no science behind this, but it's what I've seen. So my second batch I bought from a lady here in Tri-Cities in Richland, Washington. That was the best ones I bought. Those are the brown and white ones, and they were really sweet. They're still my favorite colonies. I try to keep those colonies going because they're super sweet and I can touch them, grab them. They don't bite me. Never been bit by them. And then I picked up some from Tacoma, Washington. Another person that had bred some there. Those were really nice too. But again, they were the brown and white ones. And that was my third experience. And then there's a place here in town that was breeding them and got rid of them, and they gave them to me. Those are kind of medium. They're not super nice, but not super mean. You can touch them and stuff, but they don't intentionally bite you, but they have bit me before. And I'll be honest, when they bite, they hurt way more than normal. Normals bit me before. It's usually because their tail's stuck and I'm trying to help them out. They don't really bite. You can grab them. I don't grab them up by the tail. I just grab normals, just like this. African soft furs, you gotta be careful with them. Even when you grab them by the tail, they can reach around and bite you. They are nimble and they do bite. So that was my first experience with African soft furs. If you guys watched some of my first videos, I'm gonna be truthful with you. When I first started with them, I sucked with them. I couldn't get them to breed. Luckily, people that watched my channel helped me out. It has been a learning experience with these African soft furs. I learned that the food I was feeding them didn't have enough protein. I was trying supplementing with dog food, and so what I did is I went and got some Missouri, but it was actually the higher protein Missouri, and they started breeding. At that point, they were breeding decent litters, but not near as big as my normal rats. So I was thinking of trying them out, and at that point in time, they weren't going to take up my normal rats because my normal rats were still my main diet for my snakes. So I went to different reptile shows, talked to people in the reptile community, talked to people on boards and forums, and actually even people comment below on my YouTube channel told me some things I was doing wrong with my African soft furs. I rectified those things. I realized that if I gave them seed, bird seed with low to no corn, or if I gave them like mealworms, if I actually gave them black oil seeds, on top with the Missouri 6F, they start breeding really well. I learned that, and they start breeding a lot better. Then I learned that you gotta put a hide in there. I put some hides. I went and bought some little reptile hides on Reptile Basics, put them in there. They start breeding even better. At that point, then I learned that they like a little bit warmer temperature, so I actually moved them in with my reptiles, and ever since then they've been breeding really well. So the truth is, well, I get messages all the time, people asking me, why are my African soft furs not breeding? And I'm telling you, it could be any of those reasons. It's not warm enough, not enough protein, not the right diet, not having a hide. That's the problem with them. They are way more picky when it comes to breeding. Normals, you put 2 in a box or aquarium. Next thing you know, you come back, as long as they have food and water, you're gonna have a bunch of them in there. African soft furs are definitely harder to breed than normals. Are they impossible to breed? Are they really hard to breed? No. Once you actually know what you're doing, it's actually, they breed just as well as normals. There is a learning curve, and that's something you gotta expect, that you're gonna have to set the right temperature, the right food, the right protein. Everything has to kind of be there for them to do really good. Now they breed for me just as good as my normals do. Is all that trouble worth breeding African soft furs? I've done 2 experiments so far with them. I took 2 of hatchlings that I've kept, and I put one on normals and put one on African soft furs. I've done it for 2 times now, and both times the one that was eating the African soft furs grew faster. Is a lot, not really, but like it was almost a 200 gram difference. And I was feeding them once a week, and they both took the normal. One took the normals. I think both of them missed 1 week in between them, but they were really good eaters. And the one that ate the African soft furs actually was about 200 grams bigger than the one that was eating normals. Okay, and that's like, well, maybe that's a fluke, maybe just a faster growing snake. You know, I tried it again, and the one that I did this time, there was 2 hatchlings. The one that was eating African soft furs was about 100 grams more than the one that was eating normals. Now, do I say normals are bad? No, I did normals for a long time, and my animals definitely did better. I can tell you right now, and I've told you in other videos, and if you guys get anything from me, when you guys breed your own rats, your snakes do way better than buying frozen. And I can honestly look you in this camera and tell you that I've seen a big improvement with my snakes when I bred them African soft furs. I'm not gonna say that I'm a scientist, I'm not gonna say that I'm a veterinarian and that I am a nutritionalist, but I've seen a dramatic change when I went from normals to African soft furs. I even saw that, like a big change when I started feeding them the rats that I breed because they're healthier, but the African soft furs made a big difference, a big jump. It definitely changes how fast your snakes grow once you start doing your own rats. The reason is, I think, is the nutrition level they get. That's the big thing, is that once they get that nutrition, the rats are healthier, and so the snakes are gonna be healthier. But it's not all rainbows with African soft furs, because they do have issues. And just in case you haven't seen in my other videos about African soft furs, I'm gonna throw this in there too. Females, how it works is that you have a female, and you can have a bunch of males. You can actually put males together. I've never had a problem with males killing each other. If you take about 5 or 6 males and put them with a female, if they have hit sexual maturity, what happens is when you put that female in there, she makes a colony. So you cannot add any more to that colony once they've came together anymore. What will happen if you put something new in there, they'll attack it and kill it. So if you want to add to that colony, you have to breed within. Later on, I'm not saying that you never need 5 males in a colony. I'm just letting you know that if you have a certain colony of females and males, you don't want to add more to it. Me personally, I keep 3 females and 1 male in most of my tubs. That's one of the things I've had the biggest problem with, is building a rack that can hold them. They do love to chew. You definitely gotta give a chew toy in there. I always give a piece of block of wood, but you gotta keep that in there, otherwise they will chew. They love to chew, they love to escape. I've had normals escape, but not even on the same level as I've had African soft fur escape. Honestly, and this may make people mad, but there were some that got out. I had to stick my cat on them because I could not catch them. They were just too impossible. They are too much like a house mouse. If you ever had a mouse in your house in the winter time, it's the same thing. They're hard to catch. Their food requirements are definitely more harder than normals too. Normals, I do always give my animals vegetables. I always go buy carrots. I buy all my leftover vegetables. You know, seeing other videos, I always give them that. But honestly, with normals, I would never have to give them anything besides either pig food or Missouri 6F. But with my African soft furs, I have to supplement them with other stuff. I give them mealworms and seeds, so that's more of a pain. Another thing is that they take a lot longer to become a useful size. A normal rat baby, especially the ones I have, are really chunky, and they look really plump, and they're right then and there. You can actually start being a hatchling them, and they're with a African soft fur, you gotta wait a little bit longer. So they're smaller rats, so they take longer to get to the size that you need them to feed your snakes. Even for your king snakes, your baby king snakes, it takes longer for them to get to the right size, because when they're like this tiny, where like a rat pup is like that big, or a rat pinky. So I'm going to tell you right now, it's not all rainbows, but the benefits of them outweigh the problems with African soft furs. I think they give a higher source of protein for your snakes. That's the big one right there. And number 2, they don't have that smell issue. When I had normals, I had to have my room. I had a room designated for them, and I left the window open. I had a fan sucking out, a big heavy duty fan, a commercial fan blowing out all day long, keeping it vented in there. So I had one window open blowing in, one window blowing out constantly. Even in the winter time, I had to make it where it wouldn't make it freeze in there. So, but I had to keep a heater going, but it has to blow all the time. That's one thing I hate about normals, is that if you start growing a lot of them, especially when you got a lot of snakes like I do, because I have like about 60 plus, I'm probably getting close to 80 now. When you have to have that many rats in a room, they stink, and even if you do them, change them out every 5 to 6 days, that smell is overpowering. Normals stink. African soft furs don't have that problem. I do vent the room, but I don't have to vent the room. My reptile room does not smell like rats. Also, if it got hot, you gotta keep it really cool in there. They don't like the heat at all. Normals don't. African soft furs, I mean, they can keep it 80 degrees and they're just happy as can be. If you guys are like starting out as a breeder and you have like say 20, 30, 15, 10 snakes, the way to go is African soft furs, in my opinion, is because you can have a rack in your house without making your house stink. But the problem is figuring it out. There's that learning curve. It took me almost about 3 months before I figured out how to make them breed like I wanted them to breed. And now they're prolific breeders, and they do well just as me as the normals. The only thing is they have to grow them out a little bit longer because they take longer to get useful. But everything about them I think is winning. As long as you're willing to take the extra time with them, grow them up, learn the process, you'll do really well. But again, don't think normals are bad. So is it worth the hype? I definitely think it's worth the hype. I think it's harder, but I think it's definitely worth breeding, worth doing, and I'll probably keep them for the rest of my life breeding African soft furs because I like the way they make my snakes look and how fast they make them grow, and my snakes just seem to be doing better with them. And also it helps picky eaters. I actually had 2 that were hooked on mice. Now I got them hooked over to African Softers. I could not get them hooked on to normals, but African Softers, they made the transition. And so I don't have any snake down there that won't eat African Softers. And I've never had one stuck on African Softers, but I've said this in other videos, if I was going to sell that hatchling, or I'm going to actually sell a snake that I don't want anymore in my collection, I'm going to put them on normals and make sure they eat normals before I sell them to somebody else, because I don't want someone hooked on something and they can't provide that. Anyways, guys, hope that helps out. Want to keep you guys that watch me for rats happy. This is what it feels like after a year, almost a year breeding them, and I love them, and it's pretty much what I breed now. Anyways, guys, if you wouldn't mind checking out some of these other videos right here, also hit that subscribe button. I'm almost at 1,000, guys. Thank you guys for pushing me that way. I love you. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Bye.